Hey, as you walked in today, you saw again out in the atrium a bunch of shopping carts, and that's because the month of July we make a big push for what we call the Amazing G Race, and that is funneled through a ministry of ours called Hope Ministries that's located in Florence proper, and the goal is to get food into the hands of people who really need it. And so we hope that you would partner with us. There's a list of needed items out on the table in the foyer, and hopefully you would partner. Now here's the deal: if you're in a small group, your small group has a name. It's got a little sign on the front of the cart, and hopefully you have a competitive spirit. Right? All in the name of Jesus, but a competitive spirit to bring in the most stuff. Now what happens, you say, wait a minute, I'm not in a small group. Well, first of all, I'd say you need to get in a small group. The other part would be, if you're not in a small group and you walk out and you ask a Hope volunteer, hey, what should I do with my stuff? They're gonna say, pick a cart. And I'm here to inform you today, actually, if you're not in a small group, there's only one option for a cart. It says Travis and Jacob on the front, and it's down on this side wall, down to your left, and put all of your stuff in there. And we're going for it. Now, here's the deal. I know sometimes you say, well, I can't give food, but I can give money. And we take money. I know that's hard to believe, but we still take the greenback, and it still works very well. And you can give it to one of our Hope volunteers. And what they will do with your cash is they will actually fill in the gaps. So from everything that we give in terms of actual food items, they will go back and shop and fill in the gaps of anything that we're missing. So money works just fine. You can leave cash or check with our Hope volunteers, all right? Now, speaking of Jacob and I being teamed up, Jacob and I have done a lot of life together. We actually met while we were in middle school. We went on our first missions experience together. We're in each other's weddings. We've cried together. We've been to family funerals together. We've laughed a lot. Actually, one of the things Jacob and I enjoy doing together is messing with people. And I know that's not maybe super spiritual, but it's fun, you know? I think in life, you just need to laugh a little bit, because otherwise you just shrivel up, you know, in fetal position in your bed. You never get out. You need to laugh a little bit to kind of get through life sometimes. One of the things Jacob and I like to do to mess with people is just say dumb stuff, right? Typically while we're departing people. And so one of the things we like to do, you remember Smokey the Bear? Remember Smokey the Bear, right? Remember that commercial? Now, here's the deal. All the people in that room have no clue who Smokey is. Now, he's making a comeback. I'm proud of him. He's finally being ready. You know, the 80s are coming back. If you haven't known, they're coming back strong. I love it. The 80s, baby. You know what I'm saying? They deserve a salute. So what happens is Smokey the Bear, Jacob and I will be hanging out with people. We'll be leaving. We'll be like, hey, remember, only you can prevent forest fires. And they're like, what? What does that mean? Another one of our favorite sayings is this. Right when we leave, say, hey, remember, wherever you go, that's where you are. And especially like teenagers that look at us, they're like, what is wrong with them? Like, what is going on? But that is a true statement, right? Wherever your feet go, that is exactly where you will end up. Whatever your feet do with you, wherever they lead you, wherever they take you, actually says a lot about who you are, and it says a lot about who you will become. We could actually avoid a lot of pain in life simply by having wise feet. You don't even have to be very smart. You just need feet that will take you to places that are good for you, and feet that will keep you away from places and people that will harm you. When I was growing up, one of the things my mom would say to me when I'd go out in the evenings is, hey, be home by midnight because nothing good happens after midnight, right? See, you all heard it too. Now, there's a couple of reasons why my mom would say that. Part of it is she was trying to help me gain wise feet. She was helping me fashion some wisdom into my life, but there were really two reasons she would say it. One of them is because she couldn't fall asleep until I got home. And as a dad, with my oldest being 11, we're starting to crest upon that age where he's going to be slipping out in the evenings. And I understand that now in a different way than I did when I was 16, 17 years old. The other reason that my mom would say this to me is because, for the most part, it's right. It's true. There isn't much good that happens after midnight. So my mom was trying to fashion some wise feet for me. Oftentimes, it's not intelligence or even talent that causes people to succeed or fail. It's where they go. It's where their feet takes them. And when it comes to places, it's not particularly that a place is bad, but it's typically what happens in the place that's bad. And so the question that we're going to wrestle with today is, how are your feet doing these days? How are your feet doing? Last week we looked at our heart. Today we're looking at our feet. If you have a Bible, a copy of God's Word, maybe on your phone or tablet, it will also be on the screen. Look at Proverbs chapter 4. We're going to see what Solomon has to say, one of the wisest men who ever lived. He's actually giving and passing on wisdom down to his son. And in chapter 4, verse 10, we're going to read 10 through 15, 20 through 22, and 26 and 27. So I'll let you know when we get to those breaks. But in verse 10, he says, "Listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life." You can kind of sense Solomon's pleading with his son. Verse 14, "Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers." Verse 15, "Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way." Down to verse 20, "My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body." Verse 26, "Give careful thought to the paths of your feet and be steadfast in your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." Now, there's just a couple of things I want to do to kind of build a base for where we're going today, and they're just kind of observations from the text. One is the fact that we're all on a path. Every single one of us, we're on some type of path in a variety of ways in our life. We're on a particular financial path. We're on a particular relational path. We are all on an educational path, whether you're actually actively pursuing a degree or not. We're all on an educational path. Either you've stopped learning after your last degree, or you continue to read and learn from other people. We're on a particular moral path, and certainly I would say the fact that you're presently in the room here or watching us online today, that you're on some type of spiritual path. That's true for every single one of us. The second observation that's true is that each of these paths have a predictable destination. Again, the book of Proverbs is Solomon telling to his sons, hey, there is a wise way to live and a skilled, effective, great way to live called wisdom, and then there's a foolish way to live. But they all have a certain path. Every financial, relational, educational, moral, and spiritual path has a predictable destination. And then thirdly, wise paths lead to a great life, while foolish paths lead to a lousy life. And so Solomon says here, hey son, pay attention so that your path leads you to years that are many in verse 10. So he says, if you want a long life, you pay attention to wisdom. He says, and pay attention to wisdom so that your life will be healthy in verse 22. So if we were to sum all that kind of in one phrase that would keep us going throughout the morning, it's this: wise paths lead to health and life. Wise paths lead to health and life. And so a question that I think we should all kind of consider for our lives is, what kind of paths are we currently on? Have you ever been on a path that you've actually regretted? You know, even now you're thinking back like, oh yeah, there was that one time, right? Have you ever been places you wish you had never gone? Have you ever been to parties you wish you would have never attended? Have you ever been around people or been with people you wish you had never met? Have you ever had phone numbers you wish you would have never exchanged? Have you ever been to websites you wish you would have never have visited? And the truth is yes, right? As we wrestle with those questions, yes, it's happened to all of us. All of us at certain times, we have been on a path that has led to a bad outcome. And while some people spend years and years trying to recover what they've lost by making poor decisions, nobody is beyond the reach of God's love and forgiveness. And we talked a little bit about that last week. The best part is we serve a God that is the God of second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and so on chances. He is the God of forgiveness. And every single day, God is putting people on a new path. There are always stories, every single day, people restoring broken relationships happens every day. We know that there's an amazing, deep epidemic in northern Kentucky with addiction. And yet, every single day, there are people who are breaking addiction. But a better question for us is this: why not, if we can, avoid the pain altogether? What if we could avoid it in the first place? Because I can tell you this, we all know stories of people who have mismanaged funds, right? And they lost their business and they lost their house. We know stories of dads who can't control their anger and they lose their kids. We know stories of wives who get emotionally involved with another man and they lose their marriage. We know stories of singles who hook up and then diminish the chance of them finding someone honorable down the road, because there are a vast array of number of crooked paths that result in regrettable outcomes. So again, what relational, financial, moral, educational, and spiritual paths are you on right now? And the reason why that's worth thinking about, the reason why it's worth wrestling about, is because eventually, whatever path you're on has a predictable outcome every single time. The key word there is that eventually. Eventually, it will catch up. See, somehow as we live life, and I know this is true for me too, somehow we just kind of kid ourselves, where we think we can kind of zigzag back and forth across life. I'll be in a wise path for a while, and I'll just jump over to the unwise path for a while. And we think we can run around and think that we can get through that without any repercussion whatsoever. But you know what? If you're on a bad financial path right now, if you're on a bad relational path right now, if you're on a bad spiritual path right now, eventually it is going to bite you. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be next week. It may not be until 10 years down the road where you finally realize that all these little forks in the road of life, this little fork here and this little fork here, and every decision we get to make, like yes or no, maybe or maybe not, and all these little forks, eventually they lead to bigger paths that lead to a final destination. We say little comments, and we think they're no big deal in the moment, and they may not be, but eventually they stack together and they take you down a much larger path. There are little tweets on social media that's a mouse click here and a mouse click there. It's a purchase over here. It's a simple yes or no to a relationship that we know is no good. And it might not sting in the moment, but eventually 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, there it is. And those little forks have added up over time, and they become well-worn paths in our lives. Over and over again, walking down that path, and they're hard to get off of, but they're necessary because they have a destination in mind. And the destination at the end is either good or it's bad. I know this is hard to say, particularly those to the left side of the room, because there's so many people in your life that are telling you, dream big dreams, and you should dream big dreams. And I know Pastor Stephen's telling you stuff like that on Wednesday nights and at camp. Your teachers and your coaches and your parents and your neighbors and extended family, they're telling the young people, hey, dream big dreams. But you know what happens? The truth is, some people will never achieve their dreams because a single path was taken by them or someone else. That's why Andy Stanley, the pastor in Georgia, says this: sadly, some dreams won't come true. Some destinations aren't in reach for people because of a single bad decision that someone made. But I want to encourage you, don't give up. Don't give up. If you've ever made a mistake, you know the best thing for you to do is own it. My small group are in this study right now, and it's on marriage. And one of the best things the pastor that we're studying has said so far in the study is, when it comes to marital conflict, own your part and own it quickly. That's been some great advice. It's even been applicable to me. Just own it and own it quickly. The worst thing you can do is, if you made a mistake, is to keep making the mistake over and over and over again, right? That's the worst. That's why in Proverbs 26:11, here's what the Bible has to say. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Right? Any dog owners in the room? Right? You ever seen your dog throw up and turn around and think, man, look at that. I might eat that. It's disgusting. Now think about that the next time your dog licks your face, right? You know what I'm saying? Ugh. Right? And we wonder why dogs have bad breath. I mean, seriously. The only thing dumber than going down a bad path is going down the dumb path over and over and over again. It's like a dog returning to its vomit, right? It wasn't good for your stomach the first time, puppy. It's not gonna be good the second time, right? You going down the same dumb path over and over again leads to failure. Henry Cloud, the author, says this: patterns of failure as well as patterns of success are very, very predictable. You can tell, right? We can tell, family members, friends, neighbors. We can look at someone's life and really see which type of path they're on. We can see whether they're living a wise path or an unwise path. So here's the deal. If you feel like you're shooting towards a dream and you've made a mistake and it's thrown you off, don't abandon your dream. You may just have to adjust it. And God can do a great work in your life. So for us, last week we talked, how do we get a wise heart? If a wise heart's important, how do we get a wise heart? We're talking about wise feet and wise paths that are so important for us. If that's so crucial for who we are and who we are becoming, then we need to ask ourselves, how do we get wise feet? So look with me in Proverbs chapter 13. We're going to see how we get wise feet. Proverbs 13, verse 20 says this, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. So for us to get wise feet, we need to walk with the wise. So let me ask you, who are you walking with these days? Who are the people in your life? Are they wise or are they foolish? Who do you spend the most time with? Are you spending the majority of your time with wise people who are encouraging you, who kind of have a similar viewpoint in life? Who are your best friends? Are they people who are wise? This past week, we had a longtime church member, grew up here, moved to Carrollton for a while, then moved back for the last roughly decade, right? His name's Bud Giles, was around, wonderful, wonderful guy, wonderful guy. The pastor from First Baptist Carrollton, Chris White, actually led the funeral. And it was awesome. One of the great things that Chris said in that funeral was this, a man who's in his mid-50s, and Bud was 92. He said, I want to encourage every single person in the room to make sure that you have at least a friend where you have to reach out in life to get a hold of them. And what he meant by that was make sure that you have some people who've lived a little more life than you as a part of your life. Students thinking about Dash and student camp, and TJ encouraging us on how important it is that we make good decisions and to make sure our Dash counts. I'm telling you, coming out of camp, one of the greatest things you can do, maybe it's a neighbor or a coach or a small group leader that you just finished meeting with. You figure out how to get some time with them. And I will encourage you in this. I promise you, if you go ask your mom and dad for about $20 and you think of a person who's a little further down the pattern of life than you are, and you say, Mom and Dad, can I have $20 because I want to go take Mr. Jordan to coffee and I want to ask him some questions about how I guarantee you'll get the $20 every single time. It will be the best money your parents will ever spend on you because they understand you are on a path towards wisdom. And so I encourage you, that's true for all of us. Some of the best, wisest people I've ever met are people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who have mentors from people who are a little further down the game of life. It's certainly wise what Chris shared with us. Bill Hybels, pastor of a church in Chicago, he tells the story of a childhood friend where he used to go visit in the southern parts of the United States. And he said, we would be busting out the door to go play ball. And as the door sprang open and we're already out in the grass, his dad would catch us at the door and he said, hey boys, just remember one thing. Be careful who you hang out with because stupid rubs off. It's true. It does rub off, right? Say you work in a place where profanity just flows like the Ohio River and spews everywhere. It's not your fault that you work there, but can profanity rub off? Of course it can. Some of you may work in a financial institution where being caught up in the money game is just kind of the MO of the office, right? And everyone is trying to figure out how they can get the most money, to keep the most things. And that's the end game, no matter what it costs. Can greed rub off? Absolutely. Conversely, on the other side of the coin, right? Let's say you have a supervisor who comes in with a joyful attitude and they show appreciation to you and your colleagues. And they just kind of brighten the place up when they come in. Can a positive attitude rub off at your workplace or in your home? Absolutely. Or let's say you work out at a fitness center and the same people kind of show up at the same times of the week and they're there and they're all fit and they're fired up and you just kind of see it happening together. Do you think healthy workout habits rub off on you? And you're thinking, no way. No, those people annoy me. No, they can. They can. Or maybe you're a part of a 12-step meeting group. I would just say in Northern Kentucky, there is a fantastic ministry called Celebrate Recovery. It was birthed out of a church in California. It's awesome. We've had church members go through it, actually. It's been fantastic. It's a 12-step program based upon the scriptures. And it's just so healthy. And I'm just saying, just imagine you sitting in one of those 12-step groups, and everyone's admitting their mistakes, and everyone's committing to a new path of life. Does the courage rub off? You bet. All the time. In life, stuff just rubs off. And Solomon was in tune to this principle. That's why he gathered his son close to him, and he warns him, those who walk with the wise will become wise. So we need to be careful. Who are you walking with? Who do you spend most of your time with? Are they wise or unwise? Again, Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. A couple of years ago, I was invited on a ski trip by a friend of mine. We were actually on his porch. It was late at night. We're hanging out. And he said, hey, man, I'd like you to go skiing with me and some of my buddies. Now, just so you know, as a backdrop for my skiing experience, I've been to Perfect North, and this trip was out west in a place called Denver, Colorado, where they actually get real snow, right? And if you think Perfect North is just kind of blah, there's actually a worse place to ski, and that's called Paoli Peaks. It's in southern Indiana. Right? Sorry if you work at Paoli Peaks, right? The runs are shorter. It gets less real snow than Perfect North. Can you imagine? It's beautiful. And we go out west, and I'm like, man, here's the deal. I haven't really skied all that much. He's like, oh, it's simple, get a lesson. All right, I'll get a lesson. So we go out there. At the very beginning, we go down a green, right? Green means beginner, means bunny. Kids are passing me. And hey, we're just going to warm up on a green. So sure enough, the first part was groomed, which means they've had a machine go through, and it's kind of a perfect. We're rocking and rolling. And then all of a sudden I got to an ungroomed section, which no one ever told me you have to ski differently, right? And I go through, it's up to my knees, poof, I bite it. I sink down in the snow, my skis are sticking up, that's the only thing you can see. I go to stand up and I push my poles down thinking there's something beneath, there's not. They had 2 feet of fresh snow the day before we got there. I put my skis and they just keep going down. So it's like a wrestling match just to stand up, right? So finally, up from the snow I emerge, it's like I go about 2 feet and fall again. And the guys are way down, they're waiting on me, they're laughing at me, and I stand up, I fall a third time in about 4 feet. Which all the guys leave, my buddy hangs with me. We get the next day. I've built up now from the greens to the blues. Now here's the problem. I had been told in the marketing strategy to get me on this ski trip, hey, don't worry. We don't ski on the black diamonds. We ski mostly blues. They warm up on the blues and they skied black diamonds all day. And now I'm trying to figure out where we're going. We're going down. There's another guy who's about the same equivalent skier as I am. We're both shaking in our boots. We're going down this hill. It's a whiteout. It's snowing so hard you can't tell where the paths go. We stop, pull out a map, and we're like, where do we go? If we go to the left, it stays blue. If we go to the right, it's blue. If we go too far to the right, it's a black diamond. Our friends are just in front of us. We've been skiing blues. I'm feeling a little confident. It's a whiteout. We stop. Get the map out. Some people come up from behind us. We're like, can you please help us? Oh, yeah, we just skied this. The only problem is with this whiteout, we're not sure where to go now. Thanks. Our friends are going, hey, guys, this way. It's this way. And so sure enough, we follow our friends. And in about 30 seconds, I find myself on a 2-foot ledge with a red rope that you're not supposed to go over, because if you do, you're going to be like one of those chips in the Price is Right Plinko game, and you're going to be binging around trees all the way down the mountain. Unsafe. And I'm telling you, in that moment, we were on the black diamond. In that moment, you know what came to my mind? This is stupid. What am I doing here? And sure enough, Solomon is right. A companion of fools suffers harm. I'll never listen to those guys again. I'm telling you, after that was over, skis came off. I was in the lodge. I was sipping hot chocolate by the fire. It was amazing. No injuries. It was awesome. I can't tell you how many times in our church, though, I hear the stories. Man, life was going good. Got in with this crew of people. Started hanging out in places we shouldn't have gone. Met other people I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with. I started drifting from God. Started drifting away from my family. And I just need help. And I've heard it so many times, but I can also say this, it is so predictable. The paths that we're on lead us to a destination, and it is so predictable. So my encouragement to you is to get around some wise people. If you're not in a small group, if this is your only experience with Florence Baptist Church, this is a great starting point, but this is not the ending point. You should be doing life with people. And we have something for that called small groups. Some meet here, some meet off campus. And I would encourage you to get your feet walking towards a small group. If you're only casually here and I check out Florence every about 6, 7, 8 weeks. If that's you, my encouragement to you would be start wearing a worn path of regularity to corporate worship. Maybe that's the place where you need to grow. And so we need to be around wise people if we're going to grow as wise. The second thing is this: don't swerve. Don't swerve. Stay on a good path. Again, in Proverbs 4, the last verse of the chapter, verse 27 says, do not turn to the right or the left. You see where I got that? Don't swerve? Genius, right? It took me hours. Don't turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. There's a therapist, Marcus Bachman, said this: people tell me all the time, I think I married the wrong person. And he said in their life, they start swerving. They start lowering their boundaries at work. They start meeting other people. He said the deal is usually they didn't marry the wrong person. It's just how they're conducting themselves in their marriage right now. They're not conducting themselves. I heard years ago, if you think the grass is greener on the other side, what you didn't know is there's a septic tank underneath. Instead of watering the grass on the other side of the fence, what if you started watering the grass on your own turf? What if you start nurturing the grass on your side of the fence? What if you started tending and caring for the grass on your side of the fence? It'd be a very wise thing to do. So oftentimes it's not about marrying the wrong person or choosing the wrong job. It's how we're going about it. It's how we're walking the path. Sometimes you just have to stay on the path. And maybe you need to get some help. Maybe you need to get some counseling. But staying on the path is so helpful because Solomon encourages not to swerve to the left or the right. Don't swerve into a ditch. So you know what happens? Sometimes we need to dig a good rut. You walk a path over and over again, you get a good rut. Then there's some bad ruts, right? There's some bad ruts you can get in. But in terms of a good path that's well worn, you can get in a good rut. You know who has a good rut? My parents and my in-laws have some good ruts. My parents have been married 46 years this year, and my in-laws have been married 41 years this year. Do you know who loves their ruts? I do. Mary Julia does. My sister does. My in-laws do. Their grandkids do. We love their ruts. I'm so glad they have ruts. My dad was working last Friday, providing for he and my mom. My mom had a little break in the afternoon. She texted me in the morning, hey, can I run up? Sure, come on. We hung out, we laughed, we played, we went to Dave and Buster's. Not just me and my mom, we took the grandkids. We're thinking next time to leave the grandkids with a babysitter though. It was fun, we had a blast. It was awesome. It's just part of the rut. Mary Julia's mom is known as Mimi in our family, and so my oldest son, Will, went to Mimi camp. You know who loves Mimi camp? I do. Whatever number of children you have, you reduce it by one, feels like vacation. I'm a big fan of Mimi camp. It was great. But in our family, me and Mary Julia, our siblings, the grandkids, we have reaped a lifetime of benefits from their ruts. We've reaped the benefit of security. We've reaped the benefit of well-being. We've reaped the benefit of some amazing memories. We get confidence from them. We get hope from their ruts. Can you imagine, though, what would happen at this point in the game if any of the four of them decided to get out of this rut and get into another one? Can you imagine the damage? It would be so devastating to our family. It would be so devastating to us, to the grandkids. It'd be devastating to their co-workers. It would be devastating to their friends. It would be devastating to the churches that they're a part of. In our family, we are big picture people. And if you follow, if we're connected on social media, you see that, right? We've had pictures. There's pictures album. We got the thing, you got to have the space in your house for the picture albums. You cram them in there. You find another one, you pry them apart, you shove another photo album in, right? Not all of them are electronic. I know that's hard to believe. But not all of them are electronic, where they're stored on towers in your basement, You know what pictures are? Pictures tell the story of a deeply entrenched, well-worn path every time we take pictures as a family, and we are grateful for it. So find a good rut, wear it out, Keep making wise decision after wise decision. In terms of application for today, here's what I would say to you. If you find yourself in an unwise path, or maybe you're in a bad rut, my encouragement to you is to start now. The best time to get wise feet is not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not a year from now. The best time to walk a wise path is actually right now. If you would say your life is just a heap of loss and fear and regret, my question to you would, what are you going to do to change that now? What are you going to do today? Not next year, what are you going to get on today? Because every single path that we leave has a destination, and the destination is either good or bad. Now, if you're a college student in the room, or maybe late high school, or you're a 20-something in the room, my encouragement to you is this: don't waste your 20s. I know there's this popular pressure that says, oh man, go enjoy and sow wild oats. That is foolish. It is a mistake. If you think you can drift through your college years and your early 20-somethings wandering around trying to find yourself without purpose or direction, and then think at the end of that season that you're going to be a better person for it, that's not true. I'm 37 and I could have sworn last month I was 17. In my mind, I still am 17, which is why I do stuff like skiing with foolish people. But I can tell you this, in the 37 years of life I've had, what I've seen is how little time that we have to get an education, to learn some skills, to raise a family, to build a career, and to make some money. That is a lot to do in a little bit amount of time. And the truth be told, guys, by the time you're in your 40s and 50s, you've pretty much set the direction for your life. And so by the time you're 40s and 50s, what that means is in your 20s and 30s, you have to get going. You have to get after it, because the window of time is extremely short. If you're a parent or grandparent in the room, let me encourage you with this. If there were a guarantee in raising kids, man, wouldn't we all be on it? I mean, if there was a way where you could do everything absolutely right and your kids would just grow up right and perfect, I mean, we would all be doing it. There are no guarantees in parenting, there aren't. But there are some wise things that we can do as parents and as grandparents. And my first encouragement to you, if you're a parent or grandparent in the room, is model this. Model wisdom. Model ruts, good ruts. Because it rubs off, right? It rubs off to your children and your grandchildren. So model wisdom from them. The other thing I would encourage you to do is get your kids away from video games all the time. All things are good in moderation, but get them away from video games and get them up off the couch and get them going. Get them moving towards something. And sometimes it takes effort. There's a reason it's called parenting. It's called work. It takes work. And it's my job and the job of Mary Julia as parents in our household to figure out what helps our kids. And for some, it takes a journey to figure out what their thing is sometimes. We've had a kid in ballet, soccer, basketball, cheerleading. I mean, it just took one semester at a time. We're going to try this for a season. And we've landed on horseback riding. And it's been fantastic. And it's changed just how she understands life and responsibility, because we needed to help her find what it was to help her get going. But it's never too late. It's never too late. I want to show you a picture. This is a picture of a note from a girl who lives in northern Nashville. And she grew up in a household where her parents were high school sweethearts that met at 16. They got married when they were 20, and not too long after the wedding day, things were unraveling. There was a history with her dad of alcohol abuse and drug addiction, and that led to other things. Pornography was part of the issue. There ended up being affairs on both sides of the marriage, and her world early on was just an emotional mess. Lots of heartache, lots of pain, lots of struggle, lots of questioning, who am I? And one of the pieces she thought that could help her home life was if her dad could come to church. And so sure enough, this is a note that she wrote down in her small group on a Sunday morning when she was asked for prayer requests that my dad would come to church. Now, to give you a little hope, I want to show you the next picture. This is a picture from her wedding last weekend. And associated with this picture, his wife, her mom, said this: "This is what restoration looks like. This is our daughter who in 2007, when she was 12 years old, shared with her small group at church on this scratched piece of paper to ask them to pray that my dad will come to church. Her dad was saved a year later on March 12, 2008, and over the last decade, we've experienced God bring a dead marriage to life and heal many years of wounds in our children, especially in this father-daughter relationship. This is what restoring those first 12 years the locusts had eaten looks like for them, which is a reference to Joel 2:25, a great passage on restoration. This is what true love and forgiveness looks like. Embracing with sweet, real tears from their love for one another every time they saw each other on her wedding day and a few days before. This is what answered prayers from so many look like. Oh, how God answered this little girl's prayer, and her dad not only started coming regularly to church, but he has now been ordained as of a few years ago and got the honor of praying over her and officiating her wedding. Wow, God, you truly are amazing. And she closed with this: may we all hold on tight to what her dad told them during their marriage ceremony. Never, ever give up. God can do it. If you're on a bad path, my encouragement today, get on a good one. Make the decision today to get on a better path. If you're in your college years or early 20s, mid-20s, I'm telling you, start making some good decisions where you make your life count. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and you're on a bad path, make the decision to get on a good path and do it today. I have seen people who in their 40s have gone back to school to get an education to fulfill their dreams. I've seen people who have blown it in their first marriage. They learned a few things and grown, repented. Now they're in a great second marriage. They're applying everything that they should have done the first time around. They're doing it now. Or I've seen people who have failed to spiritually influence their own children. And now they're grandparents, and they've kind of had a redirection in life. They've gotten on a better path. They're dialed in, and they are investing spiritually into their grandchildren. That could be your story too. And so the question is, how are your feet? Where are your feet taking you? Are you surrounding yourself with wise people? Are you staying on a good path? Solomon would encourage us not to swerve. And you can do it today with God's help.